eating and exercise and stress are such an important part of our life. Such an important part of our life. And our gut is everything. What we put in our mouth and how it comes through our body and what it gives to us for nutrients and for health is everything that makes us vital and live and be healthy or not be. Good morning. Today I'm going to do a little bit different vlog than we normally do. Jim isn't here. He said, "Do you want me to come?" And I said, "No, you sit out this one." Because we just did the part on diabetes and how to eat, and because we're going to follow it up again tomorrow with the second part, I thought today it would be a really good idea to tell you a little bit about where we got our information from. I know when I speak to a lot of people on here, I'll get comments sometimes that say, "You can't make that medical claim," or you can't claim that genetics, something isn't genetic, that it's acquired. And you're right, I am not a medical doctor, but I'd like to share where I'm getting my information from, part of it, and give that basis as the platform of what I've built the last 9 years on and why we believe the way we do. So Dr. Diana Schwarzbein is a medical doctor and endocrinologist, and she wrote several books. Her books are called The Schwarzbein Principle, and you can get them on Amazon. You can get them in almost any bookstore, and we very much advocate buying her book. So please, if you have any questions about any of this, go buy her book. She has the Schwarzbein Principle. It's called The Truth About Losing Weight, Being Healthy, and Feeling Younger. And then she also has the Schwarzbein Principle 2, which talks about the transition of going from being very unhealthy to becoming healthy again. She has cookbooks. There are some things that, since she has written some of her books, we have done additional research on with the Weston Price organization. And so we do not use canola oil. She does condone canola oil in some of her first books. She also uses soy. We do not use any soy. So those disclaimers said, the information that she has in her book that tells the scientific part in her practice and what she has done is invaluable. It's invaluable. It's the foundation of what we've gone on. And then we've gone on and researched doctor after doctor after doctor, research project, research papers, studies that have been done, plus our own personal bodies and what they have done, and some of our friends' bodies and what they have done, and her patients and what they have done. So that said, I'm going to take a little bit of time and tell her story. So she graduated in 1990 from 9 years of medical school. And she was an endocrinologist and was very excited about being able to study all about all the different systems and patients with different illnesses that were very complex. Instead, she was given diabetics. And she was very discouraged about this because she was taught in school that diabetics, once you're a diabetic, and that's all there is to it. And we just try to keep your blood sugar normal as we possibly can, and that's it. And so she thought, wow, this is just not what I went to school for, just to watch people get their limbs amputated, get worse, and die. But I'm going to do the best I can. So because she was a new doctor, when she went to her practice, she spent 1 hour with each one of her patients to start with. And she wanted to find out how everything had been. Without fail, her patients would say to her, "Please don't tell me the same things that all the other doctors have told me." because I just feel like I'm getting sicker. And she said, I just don't have anything else to tell you right now, but let's work together on this so that I can figure out how to make you well. So what she ended up doing was having each one of them go and do a finger stick like 7 times a day. So before each meal, an hour after each meal, and just before bedtime. And keep detailed records of what they ate. And they were all on the American Diabetic diet. And so they did that, and they came back after a week, and what they told her is, it's the food that's making us sick. So she started looking at it, and of course they were on the ADA diet, which is a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet. So their normal breakfast is a bowl of shredded wheat, toast, orange juice, maybe a piece of fruit. I know that I've studied this for a long time, but this totally shocks me that you would give sugar to a diabetic. And that's what she found. She found out that they were all eating low fat, and when you eat low fat, then you eat low protein, and they weren't eating a lot of vegetables, but they were eating a lot of complex carbohydrates. So complex carbohydrates, your pastas, your rice, your wheat, your grains, and then all the other fruits and things like that that you're eating. And so they found out that this was making them sicker. Some of them had been diagnosed accidentally as a diabetic. That happened to me when I went into the hospital, when I had my cardiac scare, which was also an anxiety scare. And mine was actually before Jim's. So it was at least 10 or 11 years ago. And some fluky thing, they figured out, oh, your blood sugar's high. And so they put me on the pin cushion, constantly checking for my blood sugars and wanting to give me insulin. And I didn't have anything. And so people that got accidentally diagnosed were put on this diet and got sicker and sicker and sicker. So it's important that you understand what the role is that insulin plays in the processing of sugar. So as soon as the sugar comes into the body, then the insulin helps move this sugar in from the bloodstream into the cells where it can be utilized. And the liver helps it so that it doesn't put too much sugar up into the brain. But in a diabetic, they are insulin resistant, meaning their cells don't want to let the insulin in. And so what happens is your sugar doesn't go out of your bloodstream, so your blood sugar is high, and the pancreas keeps going, well, no insulin, I told you to go and take the sugar and get it out of there. So it pumps more insulin, so you have high insulin and high blood sugar. So with already having high blood sugar and high insulin, the ADA diet now wants you to eat more carbohydrates and low fat. And that is a recipe for disaster. And a normal person who is insulin sensitive, when they eat a breakfast like the ADA is having you do, it will only make your blood sugar raise about 10 points, 10 to 15 points. But a diabetic, it will raise it 100 points. And so it's really a poor diet for a diabetic. She decided to do something really drastic with her patients, and that was to take them on to a zero cholesterol diet to start with, not forever, but just to start with. And she said she didn't want them to eat potatoes, rice, legumes, cereals, breads, fruit, low-fat yogurt, milk, and of course refined sugar. And then since sugar was a combination, since their foods are often in combinations, so some foods have fats in them and protein and things like that, they would look and see how it affected their body. So for instance, milk, they found that 4 ounces of milk raised them up 100 points. So even though milk has protein in it, milk has sugar in it, and so that became something that they didn't eat during that period of time. And because she didn't want her patients to go hungry, then she says, go ahead and eat more protein and more fat during this time. Well, so they came back after a week, and some of the patients had cheated. They came back and said, okay, so you told me that I could eat some protein, and I hadn't had steak in a really long time. So yes, I had steak every night. And, I had this, a higher protein level, or I ate more fat. Well, the patients that had cheated and had eaten more protein and fat, their blood sugar levels were so much lower than the ones who hadn't cheated. And so she started evaluating what was going on. So by lowering the sugar and increasing the fat and the protein, they started losing 1 to 2 pounds a week. And they're like, wait a minute, I'm losing by eating fat? And that's exactly what was happening. Prior to this, these patients had had high blood sugars, abnormal cholesterol panels, high blood pressure, weight gain, fatigue, and constant hunger. As they followed the new dietary program, their blood sugars normalized as they were able to get off the insulin and then their oral medications that they were on for diabetics. Their cholesterol levels improved, so she stopped their cholesterol lowering medications. Their blood pressures went down, so she stopped their blood pressure medications. She said, I was able to eliminate most of their drugs, and they lost body fat and gained muscle mass. Their energy improved, and they were not reporting hunger anymore. They felt great. She said her diabetic patients were so happy that they had this huge change. And then they started referring their friends and family to her. And then people started being referred to her that didn't have diabetes, but were just obese and having all kinds of health problems. And then there's one other part that I have mentioned this several times, and I want you to understand that it's not just from me, from my patients that I've seen, but it's also from Dr. Schwarzbein and this doctor. Said I had taught that diabetic patients have had a very high rate of heart disease. Correspondingly, I had observed that diabetic patients frequently had a large scar down the middle of their chests. Frequently, I'd found that they'd had heart bypass surgery before they were diagnosed with diabetes. The complications suddenly occurred to me. After a heart attack, people are told to go on a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet, which increases both their blood sugar and their insulin. The increases in blood sugar and insulin were turning heart patients into diabetics. The newly created diabetics were then told to continue eating high carbohydrates, which further increase their levels of blood sugar and insulin levels. Now we say to those diabetics, your blood sugar is too high, so you need to take insulin and to bring the blood sugar down. And the insulin causes body fat. It makes the sugar go into fat. And so the patients were getting fatter and fatter and having more and more illness. The doctors get stuck on that it's a gene that causes this insulin resistance. And she has determined that it's acquired, that you can have the gene, but you don't have to put it into practice if you live your lifestyle and your diet in a different way than would be lived if you didn't, change the way that you're eating. And this is a quote from her. I became convinced that the degenerative disease of aging, which are the end results of insulin resistance, are accelerated by poor eating and lifestyle habits. In other words, a genetic predisposition to disease is not a guarantee that you will develop the disease. Instead, what you do and how you live your life determine your risk for developing insulin resistance and the degenerative disease of aging. So when I say to you that you can change your genetics by the way you live your lifestyle, this is my background from coming up and saying it, also watching what has happened to my husband with his blood pressure, and now watching Van as he's changing his lifestyle and being able to go off of his medications and things like that. She even goes on to say how that your genetics only play a part if you do not live your lifestyle properly and eat properly. Then your lifestyle will cause your genetics to kick in and cause those problems to happen to you. She said in a perfect world, poor eating wouldn't happen, poor exercise wouldn't happen, but eating and exercise and stress are such an important part of our life, such an important part of our life. And our gut is everything. What we put in our mouth and how it comes through our body and what it gives to us for nutrients and for health is everything that makes us vital and live and be healthy or not be healthy. So I just felt that it was really important that I take these few moments and share the background from Dr. Schwarzbein of how she found this particular diet and what she did with it. And then we will be talking with my sister and her husband Van again and being able to talk to them about some of the questions that you have asked. And if you really want to know more, because there's so much more to learn, then purchase her book, The Schwarzbein Principle, and read it for the scientific part. Realize that she will break down the carbohydrates and the proteins and tell you the servings and all of that, and it's wonderful in that way. But just beware of some of the canola oil and some of the soy, because those aren't so good for you anymore. And we've certainly changed through the years as we've realized more and more things. But the basics of her book can't be beat.